Hey, everybody, and welcome. This is Bob, and tonight I'm having a conversation with Jeremy Bryant from Paranormal the New Normal and Maniacal Music Musings. That's a mouthful, Jeremy. How are you tonight?
It is a mouthful, and everybody always messes it up. But you actually got it right. So, more love to you, Bob. And I am doing great, especially considering that your episode of my show is going to drop a week from this Saturday.
Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. That sounds good.
But I'm doing
I'm
pretty
trying to
good.
remember what we talked about, to be honest with you.
Hell if I remember. Oh yeah, we talked about. I only know this because of the title, but we talked about whether ghosts burp and fart.
Oh, okay. There you go. There you go.
Good
Well,
conversations, you know.
tonight I wanted to talk to you a little bit about basically just having a free flowing conversation. That's what I like to do. And my first question was, so you kind of have two. I mean, is there paranormal music? Could there be a crossover between the two, or how have you gotten to these two areas of interest that you're doing shows on?
Well, well, I mean, I started the paranormal show because I love the paranormal. And when I
Uh-huh.
first wanted to start a podcast, a solo podcast, I said to myself, like, what do you truly love in life? And I, at that time, was really into paranormal podcasts. I was listening to a lot of them,
Mhm.
and just, I wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to be able to express my opinions about it and hear other people's opinions. So, hence, Paranormal the New Normal was born out of that. But
Mhm.
I, I then met on the original podcast I came from, Bracket Bastards. I met a man named Chancey Greif, and the two of us bonded over our mutual messed up sense of humor. I don't know if I can curse in your show or not, but but over our mutual sense of humor, we kind of bonded, and we both love music, different genres. Well, not different genres completely, but we both have our own taste in music. I'll say that much,
Mhm.
and I wanted to start a music show with him because I wanted to talk music with somebody and introduce people to music they never heard of. And
Oh, okay.
so I started a music show with him, and so that's basically where the two came from. But as far as your question goes, God, yes, is a crossover. I am a huge fan of horrorcore rap and of symphonic metal. Two
Mhm.
completely different genres, but both like to talk about spirits, ghosts, zombies, and everything else in between paranormal related. So,
Oh, interesting. I'm not familiar, so this is fantastic. So, I mean, give me some song titles that would be relatable to that, idea.
um, okay, well, I'll,
Artist and title, I suppose.
yeah, okay, well, I'll go symphonic metal first because that's the first thing into mind. Um, so one of my favorite bands in the symphonic metal verse, um, Avantasia, which is basically Avalon and Fantasia put together.
Hmm.
Um, they have their newest album is actually called A Paranormal Evening with the Moonflower Society, and it's a concept album. Like all their albums are concept albums, and they're telling stories. But in one of the songs on that album is actually a theme song for Paranormal the New Normal. So,
Oh, cool.
because the course of that song is literally, I see specters and ghosts all around me,
Oh.
and the whole album is basically about a young man experiencing the paranormal side of life. So it's interesting. And then another one of my favorite symphonic metal bands, Nightwish, has an amazing 9 minute long song called Ghost Love Score.
Interesting.
And it's so that's the metal part of it. I mean, if you want to go to the horrorcore side of it, there literally is an artist called Blaze Your Dead Homie who is technically in character supposed to be a zombie.
Hmm.
He supposedly died and came back to life and is a rapper now.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of
Yeah,
it's kind of a whole like Ziggy Stardust kind of a situation in that case. like a
I mean, yeah,
character that they've pulled together there for the music?
yeah, I mean, that's basically his whole thing. Is he's a gangster who got shot and came back to life, and now
Mm-hmm.
he's a zombie. And I mean, there's also another artist called Kung Fu Vampire who is basically raps about being a vampire. I mean, if you want to go back to the metal side, there's a band called Powerwolf, who
Mm-hmm.
all they sing is songs about werewolves and famous werewolf cases throughout history and famous dogman cases and
Mm-hmm.
vampires and all that as well. So I mean, there's a lot of different aspects out there in
That's
music that have to do
cool.
with the paranormal.
I had no clue. To be honest with you, I'd never heard of that. That's fascinating. So now they come together. These two things that you like are merging into one. But do you cross over much in conversation, or do you kind of stick to one or the other for the shows?
Uh, well, I mean, our music show has guests every episode,
Mm-hmm.
so I tend to bring an album that like the way it works is our guests recommend brings an album that they love or a CD they love, and they usually have a reason for it. And me and my co-host try to match it with our own albums. So I tend to go more on that one with what they bring, and then if whatever I could bring that's going to complement their album or I think match up at least. So I mean, I've had people on before where I could bring an album like Avantasia, or I could bring like my co-host from my other show, Global Strangeness, was on our show a month or so ago, 2 months ago maybe even, and I wanted to bring this one Boondocks rap album for him because the Boondocks album literally has a song on it called Black Eyed Kids.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
Mm,
because he's my co-host on a paranormal show, and I know he loves Black Eyed Kids, I had to bring that for him.
yeah. And that's creepy. Those black-eyed kids are really creepy.
Oh, that's one of the creepiest paranormal topics there is out there, and the fact that there are so many sightings of them, but there's so little information about them is the scariest part.
Yeah, that's a weird one. Hmm.
100%.
You have never met a black-eyed kid, have you?
I think my own kids act like that sometimes, but no, not necessarily. No.
Not officially, I suppose.
Uh, Honestly, if I did, I don't know if I'd be here to talk to you because I don't know what happens when you meet them. No one really does because it seems like if you see them and don't let them in,
Hmm.
then you'll be fine. But for those who let them in, we don't know what happens because they
Hmm.
are not around. They tend to not. There's nobody out there saying, "Oh, I let them in, then this happened." No one's saying that. So if you let them
It's
in,
all being turned away, I suppose, huh?
I mean, but it's not even just them knocking on your door anymore. I mean, I've heard stories of people run into them in the middle of a city. Like the story I heard was this girl and her friend ran into one. Like they saw this kid like at 2, 3 in the morning in a major city. I forget which one, but in a major city, this kid at 2, 3 in the morning was just like kind of hanging in like a median, like in a major road.
Hmm.
And they pulled over because they were worried about the kid. And they're like, "Are you okay?" And then like when they turned the kid around, he just had full black eyes, and they just ran back to the car and got in the car and drove away. Because I mean,
Yeah,
Lord
you're
knows what would have
okay.
happened if
It's
they didn't.
okay.
Lord knows what would have happened if they didn't. But I mean, the black eyed kids are creepy, and now there's stories of white eyed kids, which it's a theory now that the white eyed kids control the black eyed kids.
Oh, okay. I've not heard this. So this is something new to me as well. So their eyes,
It's
theirs have white in their eyes. They don't have any iris or retina or anything. It's
yeah,
just all white.
yeah. Basically, there's no pupil or anything. It's just pure white, and
Yeah.
it's scary. I mean, I don't know. It's a relatively new phenomenon in the paranormal world, and people are still trying to figure out what the. I mean, we not like we knew anything about black eyed kids to begin
Right.
with, but
That's right.
now there's a whole new element to it. And it's just like, this is even more creepy because if there's something controlling them, what is this? Children of the Corn?
Yeah. Really. That's weird. So
It's strange as could be.
So what got you, like, if we go way back, what got you interested in the paranormal? I'm assuming it was something that was further back in your life, but that's
Oh,
my
I mean,
guess.
my interest in the paranormal goes back to God. I mean, I was a kid in fourth, fifth grade, and I used to work in the library on my lunch because I was a nerd. And
Hey, I worked in the library. Get out of town.
I mean, I worked in the library on my lunch in fourth, fifth grade just because it was something to do rather than having to go outside and play. And I really wasn't a fan of going outside and playing at that age because I was always a fat kid.
There's a
But
bunch
eh,
of black-eyed kids out in the schoolyard.
I mean, even before that, I was teaching kids in younger grades to read and all that. Like I don't know. I wanted to find more useful ways to spend my time on lunch than going outside. But
Hmm.
And I mean, I was working in the library, and there was this one book in my elementary school was very little. Like it's not even open anymore because it was so little they finally closed it down. But it was really little, and there was this one book in the library I always came across, and it was a book about Bigfoot and Loch Ness monster and all the basic cryptids that we knew about in the '90s,
Hmm.
and of course, in the last page, there was a page about living dinosaurs, one of my favorite topics. But so that book is truly what sparked my beginning interest in the paranormal. And then through the years, I would wane in and out of the topic for a long time. I mean, I was a kid; I got distracted.
Sure.
But eventually, Monsters and Mysteries in America and Monster Quest and all these shows started coming on
Right.
in my teenage years. They started coming on. All these shows started coming on Destination America and Discovery Channel and all that, and
Right. Yeah.
that kind
Travel
of
Channel.
that kind of yeah, exactly. That kind of reignite. I mean, Destination America is actually one of my favorite channels ever, and it's
Hmm.
hard to find nowadays, but. Monsters and Mysteries America. That show was so amazing. I mean, that was what really sparked my interest back in the paranormal because I heard about things I never even knew about on that show.
Hmm.
And then from there, it just basically got out of it again because I went to college and girls, beer, all that fun stuff, and not exactly in that order, but
That could be a whole nother show. Girls, beer, and the paranormal.
oh, those three don't mix, and I'll tell you, and I'll let you guess which one doesn't go with the other two,
Oh.
but but in the I guess late mid 2010s, late 2010s, I started listening to paranormal podcasts such as Monsters
Hmm.
Among Us by Derek Hayes, Monsteropolis by the Small Town Monsters crew,
Hmm.
and those podcasts are what really got me back into the paranormal. I started watching Small Town Monsters documentaries on the paranormal,
Hmm.
and that's just since then. That's when my love for the paranormal has not waned since then. It just is, and with everything going on in the world nowadays, the government admitting UFOs are real and whatnot, and the next pandemic they'll admit Bigfoot's real. But I mean, with all that stuff going on, that's why I keep saying at least. But because
they
they
kept
definitely,
Bigfoot in their pocket for the next time. Yeah.
oh, the has known Bigfoot's real since freaking Lewis and Clark. They just don't want to
Okay.
talk about it. But so I mean, since then my interest in the paranormal just has not waned at all, and it's just a love. I'll have that love for the rest of my life. It's never going to go away now.
That's fascinating. But so it wasn't like you didn't have an experience that launched you into this. It's more about well, essentially being exposed via media, books and
I
television and
mean,
so forth.
essentially, I was a very highly intelligent child. I was grades above I was grades above intelligence wise where I was actually, and reading wise and every other wise, and I just I was looking for things that I could try to actually question, things
Hmm.
that need to be proven, and that the paranormal is what led me there. I mean, it's just I could have, I guess I could have tried to figure out like a math problem that needed to be solved that hasn't been solved yet and try to solve it, but that just wasn't my forte. I was always more of a science minded person, and I mean the same reason why I always questioned religion as a kid when I was forced to go to church because I questioned things that were not proven, and I wanted to prove them or not prove or disprove them. So I mean, that's just I never. I mean, it's funny. The house I grew up in from 2 years old to 20 years old. My parents built it. It wasn't on any graveyard or anything, so there was no experiences in that house that at least that I'm aware of. And I mean, I didn't have any experiences as a child at all. I didn't see anything out of the normal. I didn't even have a UFO experience till I was in my 20s. So,
Hmm.
I mean, it was just a love for the unknown. That's basically what it was, a love for the unknown.
So you think it's the questioning, so the idea that there's something that's happening and seems to be um, happening enough that it there has to be something to it, but no one's taken the time or had the right approach to figure it out.
I don't think it's necessarily that. I mean, there are hundreds upon thousands of people that look into UFOs and aliens on a yearly basis,
Mm-hmm.
and they I mean, well, the government admitted UFOs are real now, so basically all those people got their justice at this point because the government admitted that there's something out there they don't know about. And or well, I mean, they're not telling us everything either. That's 100% true. They're not telling us
Right? Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's definitely UFO stuff that they're not telling us. They I mean, I believe that they've known and met extraterrestrials going back to at least post World War II or to Eisenhower at least. I
Mm-hmm.
actually know of a I know of an experience that Eisenhower had, but and I mean, other than that though, I mean we may have met extraterrestrials in ancient times too. Who the heck knows? I really don't. I really that's the thing is we don't know the full
Mm-hmm.
details of all this, and that's the problem. But I mean, look at Bigfoot. There are thousands of people out there that are trying to prove Bigfoot is real. I follow a lot of them on Facebook. There are people that go squatching and try to find evidence of Sasquatch in the forest and whatnot. And I know plenty of people online. I see people online every day in groups I'm in that have had experiences where they see Sasquatch or live on properties that are huge and there's these authors, Joseph and Andy. I followed them on my old Facebook page, not my new one, so I don't really see them anymore. But they live pretty much off grid. The
Mm-hmm.
internet's the only thing they have. They live off grid, and they basically live on a preserve for a Sasquatch family, and they protect them.
Oh,
And
interesting.
they post pictures all the time. You really can't see anything in the pictures per se, but
Mm-hmm.
there's theories about why that's true. And I mean, I don't know. Some people say that only certain people can see them. Other theories are that they're ultra or extraterrestrial in origin, so they have a way to block technology from seeing them.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Yeah.
mean, bottom line is, I'll never know.
Well, the hope is that you will. I mean, who thought that
One,
we would have all this news around UFOs recent over the last few years ever? I mean, they were never going to. The interesting thing to me is that you know uh, it came about at the same time where they tried to change the acronym. So it's not UFO, it's UAP.
yeah.
And so whenever they switched over to UAP, now they're like, yeah, it's UAP, and then they're trying to make it stick because they're giving more, saying, yeah, there is something.
Well,
And
I
that's
mean,
government for you, though.
it's funny. They create a new phrase for it, but yeah, it means the exact same freaking thing. I
Right?
mean,
Yeah,
unidentified flying object.
right,
Unidentified aerial phenomenon. Oh, gee,
right,
two phrases which mean exactly the same thing in this world.
right.
Like, let's just let's just call them Macintosh and Red Delicious. Oh, they're the same thing. They're just different names.
But that's the government always trying to control the language. I think
Oh God.
that's
I mean,
what they like to
the
do.
the government created the name Greys. I'm not mistaken.
Oh, really?
I believe they created the term Greys because people were reporting seeing these extraterrestrials,
Hmm.
and the government started calling them Greys in their documents, and eventually that got out to the public.
Oh, interesting.
I'm pretty sure the public invented reptilians. And I'm pretty sure the public invented Norse extraterrestrials. But
Right, yeah, the Scandinavian people or whatever.
the ones that look like
The
what
white
we know,
hair and
what
all that kind of stuff.
the Valiant Thor, which is the one that Eisenhower met with post World War II.
Right, yeah, and they have him coming to, I don't know, educate or something or another is the story,
He
right? So
he was trying to stop, well, not Americans, but the human race in general from messing around with nuclear technology.
Nuclear technology, yeah.
Which I
Interesting.
mean, he failed, but he
Yeah,
failed.
well, in a way, you say he failed, but I mean, in a way, there hasn't been. We're kind of on the wane as far as the nukes go. So the height of it would have probably been, in the '80s, and then after
The
the
Cold
'80s,
War,
it's been
yeah.
kind of it's been kind of waning ever since, and they've supposedly decommissioning these things, but again, it's really hard to know the
Sup-
truth in all that.
Supposedly, but yet there are people who believe that even nowadays that especially right now, that North Korea and Russia are getting ready to unleash them on us any day now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Who knows? I mean, that's one of the weird things. I always have the here of late. I always think that basically that where they're doing all these kind of skirmishes, and it's kind of like the government is kind of like professional wrestling. I mean, the world governments, where they kind of they go by a script and they yell at each other a bit and put on a show, and then we move on to the next thing, because nothing ever seems to get resolved, and then we're not in the same scenarios as we were in World War II, where it was affecting everybody. Now these things affect obviously people in certain areas, but they don't seem to have as wide an effect on the world. And so to me that kind of feels a little scripted. You have to have a little violence just to keep everybody in under control, but you don't need to have a lot of violence.
Yeah,
Is
I
kind of the
actually
idea.
that's an interesting metaphor, kind of, because I mean, I never heard of I never heard anybody say that like they compare it to wrestling, the whole kayfabe
Yeah,
element of it. But I
yeah,
mean, that makes sense. That makes sense in a way, because I mean, but I also think I think it's that fact that every country in the world knows that if they unleash a nuke, what the recourse is going to be. And
sure,
I think it's nobody wants World War III because that will be
right.
the end of Earth as we know it.
Well, it's not good for business.
No,
We
ain't
got to
no.
keep all these people consuming. So
We'd be back in the Stone Age of World War III unleashed anytime soon. So I mean, we'd literally be back in the Stone Age with nothing. Internet be down forever.
right.
Electric. We'd be lucky if there's electricity even after that point, and it just it would be. And I mean, once one's unleashed, it's just going to create a chain reaction, and it's not going to stop until pure destruction. So
Yeah, and that certainly is the idea for those things. The interesting thing is you mentioned is that there is this kind of if we go back to UFOs and so forth, and aliens and whatnot, this kind of theme that they're always trying to get uh, the people of Earth not to use nuclear devices. I mean, you hear that about, you mentioned Valiant Thor, but there's been other things as well that have brought that. There was, or even saving the environment. I think it was the kids in Africa who got visited at the school. That was the
yes,
message
yes.
that they heard, is kind of a save yourself kind of a situation. I think that's kind of interesting that these themes kind of run through things. What do you think about
Well,
that?
I mean, there definitely is a theme of it. I mean, there's a reason that these UFOs tend to show up more at. Actually, now you mentioned that, I think about it. There's these UFOs tend to show up more at military or schools, military installations or schools more than anywhere in the world. And it's interesting because, I mean, it makes sense though, because it's higher intelligence beings. Why wouldn't they be trying to educate us on what we should know in order to? Because, I mean, Marvel Universe in the comic books put this out there a long time ago, like back in the mid 2010s, they put this out in the comic books where it was literally it was every major alien race in Marvel Comics, the head of them meeting together in like a Illuminati in space type thing,
Hmm.
and they basically said like Earth is a backwards dirt ball. It is off bounds until they evolve to the point where they can be trusted.
Hmm.
Which I it was Stan Lee even said this multiple times, but and it's debated. But I think that comic books take a lot from extraterrestrials. I think
Mhm.
that somehow extraterrestrials got involved in the comic book world a long time ago. And I think a lot of the extraterrestrials they write about in comic books are based on actual extraterrestrial species.
That's interesting. So how many? So I've seen things, as far as numbers known and so forth of different species and so forth. Have you read anything on that?
I
The
mean,
numbers, like there's 57 varieties or whatever, but I mean it's more than that.
I don't know if it is. I mean, I'm sure there is more than that, but that are known to humans, I don't think there is
Hmm.
more than that. I think there's a lot less than that are known to humans. I mean, basically the three ones I knew for a long time were the Greys, Reptilians, and Norse. But
Hmm.
I've now been hearing about the Palladians and the Anunnaki
Hmm.
and three or four other races that were supposed to be here with the Anunnakis, Palladians, and Reptilians since the beginning of Earth. And they were the races that originally fought over Earth and created humans as slaves or brought us here from another planet as slaves. Those are the two theories I've heard the most of, is that they either
Hmm.
brought us here as slaves or they created us to be slaves. And they were warring over Earth. This is back when Atlantis actually existed, and they helped make Atlantis the technology powerhouse it was back in the ancient times. But then they left eventually. They just, for some reason, they all decided to leave for the most part. Well, except for the reptilians, supposedly. Supposedly they built an underground city made of gold in L.A. But I mean, I don't know how much I believe that one. I would love to go exploring in LA and try to figure that out. But I mean, I I could easily believe that they were here in ancient times and that they helped bring the human race to at least Renaissance times, maybe or before.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I mean, it's one of those things we'll never truly know, but there's definitely solid evidence that they were here during ancient times.
Oh yeah, I think there's definitely weird stuff that is out there. The interesting thing to me is you mentioned the slave non-slave kind of situation, and I always wonder about that because I'm like, well, I mean, if we were built to be slaves or whatever, I mean, that's fallen apart a long time ago.
God,
In
yeah,
that, and then what would we do? I mean, that's the other question would be what
we
would be the
built.
point of having people? What would they be? What would we be slaving on? You know what I mean?
I mean, I believe we built things, whether it be what is now known as Aztec ruins, or what
Hmm.
is now known as the pyramids, or what is now known as Stonehenge, or all. And I believe there's possibly 1,000 other similar structures that were all destroyed over time.
But if there's superior technology, I mean, why have a bunch of goofballs building things if you can do it better and faster with technology? That's always my thing. It's like we're kind of like you have a dog and you may have a dog in your house for a specific purpose, right? Like the dog is going to bark because somebody's walking around outside or something, but the the care the time and effort you put in to care for that dog is way more extensive than the duties that he's assigned. You know what I mean? I think we would be kind of akin to that. We'd be way more trouble than we're worth if there's
Uh,
other technologies available.
which there is. It's called security cameras. But I
That's what I'm
mean,
saying. I mean, but some people say, "Well, you
uh,
have a dog." It's because they like the dog. Really, it's not because that
uh,
you know.
oh, I mean, as someone who owns two mastiffs, I will
Yeah.
100% agree with you because I question every day why I have them. And I mean, I love the dogs obviously, and that's why I have them. But they
Yeah.
are not security. They're not security dogs by any fucking means. I mean, they they don't bark if someone knocks on the door, rings the doorbell. They don't bark. They
No.
bark if they have to go bathroom. That's about it.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, or if they or I mean, if they see like a rabbit or a squirrel go past the basement window, maybe they'll
Yeah.
bark then. But they
Go
don't. They're not
crazy.
security dogs. They serve no purpose other than to spend my money basically. That's the only reason they exist.
You obviously there's some enjoyment in there somewhere for you, and I would guess that that's the same thing. I mean, if you were to make the comparison, that's what humans would be. We're just kind of like pets, wouldn't you think?
Well, I mean, I don't think. I mean, we were slaves, yes, because we could be, but I think it's also because just it's extraterrestrial scientists and they want to experiment with these monkeys that they find on planet
Oh
Earth.
yeah,
And
like rhesus monkeys, right? Yeah, we always experiment on the rhesus monkeys for various things because the biology is similar, right? So maybe we're just similar biology to something, and so they can run a bunch of
I,
tests on us.
I think they came to Earth and they saw gorillas, they saw orangutans, and all the other apes, and they said, "Let's see what happens if we make these intelligent."
Hmm.
I think that's exactly what it was. It's just like let's make these more intelligent and see what happens and see if they can form a society. And lo and behold, we did eventually. I mean, but that's only. I mean, that's only one theory of where we came from. You're talking to someone who was a huge believer in evolution for most of his life until he started looking into the paranormal.
Hmm. Well, yeah, that just
So,
so evolution. The funny you mentioned the monkeys and I always I can't remember if it was you and I had the conversation or somebody else, but I'm like, well, where's the humans with tails? You know, there's so many varieties of monkey, right?
well, I mean, that would be Jason Alexander and Shallow Hal, but yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, so there's so many different monkeys, but we're the humans. I mean, yeah, we have different color skin, some few, traits that are a little different and so forth. But typically, if you were to stick us all in a bodysuit that covered their face and their hair and everything, they all kind of built the same, and there's nobody who's got prehensile tails or feet that can grab things. And I would think if we came from monkeys, there would be some branch in there
Well,
somewhere. You
I have
know,
to I have to disagree with you there at some point because one, maybe they got rid of the tails because there just was no purpose. And
mm, we have a
I mean, I
tailbone,
mean,
but
I mean, we have a tailbone, so that's the evidence that
yeah,
it existed at one point. But I mean, but the other thing, I can grab things with my feet. I've been able to since I was a kid, and my daughter is very skilled at grabbing things with her feet. So I mean, it's
yeah, but
my.
you don't have that big, like the thumb is offset. If you had a big toe that was a little offset, that would help a little bit more. But that's
I mean, but
my
I.
thought was with the variety is there's so much variety in these other things, and there's not very much variety in the humans, and so I'm I'm like I don't
But
I mean we may share some things with the apes, but I don't think that we're
I mean, there was
of
more.
the apes.
There was more variety though. I mean, we are Homo sapiens. There
Sure.
was seven or eight other similar species of humanoid creatures on Earth at one point in the caveman era. So, I mean, there was variety at one point, and we all differed a lot physically and genetically. And I mean, the other ones supposedly died out. I mean,
Right.
Gigantopithecus, I think, is still kicking it on Earth, but
Right.
that's a whole nother topic.
But see, and that would hold better for the theory, right? Is if we actually could prove that, because then you'd have this other, branch. The fact that all these other branches died doesn't follow like the monkey that has all these branches that are alive. And then, did we? Are humans so maniacal they just killed everything else? Because I mean, it just doesn't. To me, it just
Well,
doesn't
I mean,
sort.
we're maniacal and we're also musers, as my podcast says. But I had to bring that. I had to do that. But I mean, I mean, that was the thing. It was well believed by the evidence found that Homo sapiens killed off Gigantopithecus, and yet lo and behold, they're still Bigfoot. So if they're not ultra or extraterrestrial, then they were Gigantopithecus. Fuck, I'm gonna mess it up. But they were Gigantopithecus to begin with, and they just basically said, humans kill us.
Right.
Humans
we're gonna,
humans go that way. We go this way.
yeah, we're gonna
We
avoid these
stay in
people.
the deep woods and we don't mess with these people. We just hide. We hide. We learn how to camouflage ourselves in the woods and we hide. And
Yeah.
that's basically why we still have Bigfoot to this day in massive numbers, according to all the latest sightings and polls I've seen. But
Yeah, no, definitely. There seems to be definitely seems to be, and they're in places that you'd be surprised. I mean, it's like, oh yeah, really?
they're
They're all the
worldwide. I
way
mean,
down into Louisiana and stuff. So
every nation on Earth has their own name for Sasquatch.
yeah,
I mean, in Australia, it's the Yowie.
yeah, oh yeah,
Tibetan culture, it's the
or,
Yeti, or the
orang
phrase I hate.
pendek.
Yeah, the orang pendek is Asia,
Yeah,
more like Vietnam and
mhm.
not Korea, but Vietnam and Cambodia, that type of
Cambodia.
Asia.
Yeah, hmm
But I mean, the Yeti, or the phrase I hate, abominable snowman, is Tibetan folklore. So,
yeah,
and I believe the Tibetans have proven there is 6 or 8 different species of Yeti.
yeah. See, there you go. They got six, and we got we basically got Neapolitan. Three things going on here.
I mean, there's the Sasquatch in America, there's the skunk ape,
Mhm.
there's the grass man. I mean, whether they're just different names or different species, who knows? They all
The
have
wood
different
booger,
characteristics. What was that? The
wood
wood
booger,
booger?
West Virginia wood booger.
That's a new one to me, but I freaking love it.
Yeah. Oh, you gotta look it up. Yeah, wood booger's a good name. Um, so we've been talking about all that, but so let's tie this back to the paranormal. So all these things are essentially paranormal because they're not the norm, right?
Well,
So
the definition of paranormal technically is science which cannot be proven but is believed.
there you go.
So, I mean, that's what paranormal is. It's basically science that has been proven but has a high belief ratio to it, which, I mean, everything in paranormal falls underneath that, whether it be everything from the more common ghosts and spirits to Bigfoot and down to the lesser known dogmen, goatmen, and everything else in between, like Black Eyed Kids.
Like black eyed kids. So would you say what interests you more, like your garden variety ghost sighting, or whenever you get into these more esoteric things like the lizard people, if you like lizard people in the swamp and so forth, where
Uh,
they're not considered reptilians, they're actually more
yes.
more like an animal than they are an intelligent being.
Well, I mean, they're believed to be intelligent to some degree, but they're definitely not reptilian in nature. I mean,
Well, yeah, they
what
don't
you're
have
refer- what
spaceships or take over anything. They're just wandering around the
what
swamp.
I mean, they honestly may be reptilians. Who the hell knows? But it's what you're referring to. The best example I can think of that is the lizard man of Skateboard Swamp. And I mean, I when I started my podcast, I expected to be talking every episode about purely, like, well, hopefully purely about cryptids, Bigfoot,
Mhm.
Dogmen, and all the other lesser known cryptids such as Goatmen and I mean even Bear Squatch and all these other things that exist that like are questionable. Some of these are questionable. They seem like fantasy dreams or
Mhm.
fever dreams even, but that's what I expect to be talking about. Never did I imagine my podcast, almost 200 episodes later now, would be mostly talking more about the spiritual side of things, with ghosts and spirits, with mediums, psychics, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and all these other spiritual topics, Reiki masters and meditation masters, and all these other topics that were in the spiritual realm. I never expected my podcast to be that, and that's kind of what it became. I'm not even going to say sadly because I'm not disappointed.
Right.
I've had great conversations with mediums and psychics, and I love every single one that's been on my show. They've given me content. They give me great things to think about. They've changed my life for the better. I mean, I am I supposedly, according to a lot of people, am becoming an empath. My spiritual awakening has been happening. The podcast is part of that. It was supposed to happen. I was supposed to start this podcast. It was supposed to awaken me, according to a lot of mediums I talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, did I expect this to happen? No, not by any means. I was just a guy who likes to talk about weird crap. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not going to take what life has thrown me and try to just toss it away. I try to roll with it. I try to awaken whatever's inside me. I want it to awaken. I want to be more than I am. I want to have I want to be in touch with the spiritual side of life. And I welcome the day my awakening finally freaking finishes. I am 100% down for it.
That's interesting. So the reasoning behind that was because that were those people reaching out to you, or were you reaching out to them as far as the show goes?
Well, especially in the beginning, the first year or so of it, it was 100% me reaching out to people because, or just me responding to people that were on Facebook looking for to be guests, or finding one of the many podcast guest sites I use, finding guests on there, like where I found you, for example. But I mean,
oh yeah, which one was that? I can't remember.
Podmatch. That was Podmatch.
Okay.
But I mean, these sites help a lot with finding podcast guests, and I mean, Podmatch just me get paid out on both my accounts on Podmatch just made sure I had money in my account to freaking not go negative for my next paycheck. So I mean, I love these sites. They help me dramatically, but
oh, good.
I mean, I reached out to people for my first year at least. Now there are other podcasters, other paranormal people that reach out to me, either asking to be on my show or asking me to be on their show. Either way, I'm not a shy person. I'll do anything. But so I mean, but these people, they would tell me, they would all of a sudden at either during the show or at the end of the show have some kind of, all of a sudden they would have a message for me or messages for me, or there'd be people in the room with me that these people could not have known I was related to. These people could not have known I know these people even. There were details given to me that never could have been found out by Googling me, because when you Google me, all you're going to find possibly is my podcast. You're not going to find anything about me personally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, I've been told a lot of things by mediums and psychics about people in the room, passed on people, or just facts about me that nobody could have known. There were things told about me that even my wife doesn't know, for God's sakes, just because there was never a reason to bring it up with her. So
right, yeah.
I mean,
That's
it's
interesting. So
there's this thing.
That's a very positive experience. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's creepy. That's all I'm gonna say. It's freaking creepy. Like it gets to a point where it's like, it's creepy, but it's like, it's not creepy because they didn't plan this. It just happened. The world is creepy. That's basically the bottom line of it.
The world is creepy. There you go. That could be a tagline. Paranormal's the new normal because the world is creepy. But that's interesting.
As I open every show with, as you know,
mm-hmm.
I'm here to try to make the world more normal. Does it ever happen? Fuck no. It never happens.
But that's interesting that they know that, because I mean, I'm always for psychics and stuff, I'm always kind of skeptical because, you know, it's so, these days it's easier than ever to find certain information on people. You're telling me that your experiences have been that they're finding information that doesn't exist at their fingertips, essentially, and you've never interacted with these people before, and so therefore they're really pulling this stuff from somewhere. That is not,
put it this way,
a source.
Put it this way: after shows went off the air, I've been told things by psychics. Like, I've had names brought up from deceased relatives, and trust me, I Google myself on the regular because I'm a podcaster. I need to know what's out there about me, and there's nothing on me. There's nothing on me on Google. Nothing. I've never I never committed any crimes. I never done anything that would bring me up on Google. So the only thing you find on Google is mainly me guesting on other podcasts because I don't even put my full name out there on my podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I put it out there on the screen, but I don't type it out on like my descriptions or anything. And
Right.
it's on the name of my podcast, like it's underneath it. It says my full name, but still, like you cannot find things about me. Like you're not gonna know who my grandparents were. You're not gonna know who my parents are. You're not gonna know who my best friend was that passed away 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago, whatever the heck it was. But I mean, you're not gonna know this stuff, and yet these spirits are supposedly around me when I'm podcasting, and this ties into my empathic abilities because I
Mm-hmm.
sense things while podcasting. I get a tingly feeling in the middle of my freaking brain when
Mm-hmm.
I'm podcasting sometimes, and it's only when we're getting to the deep stuff, when we're getting to the deep conversations, that's when it happens, and that's like when I started being told I was an empath, I was like, I never thought of that even, but that makes sense. That totally ties in with everything I've been feeling because I mean, I usually podcast in my garage, but I don't do that right now because of the freaking freezing cold temperatures
Yeah, it's a little
the
cold.
Northeast, and I'm not trying to freaking freeze. I've already shivered out there enough this winter, and I'm podcasting inside as much as possible around the front porch when I can't. But 'cause at least I could heat the front porch a lot better than I could heat the garage. But so I mean, it's a whole thing where it's mysterious, it's unknown. I'm being told things about me that people can't know, that people
That's
wouldn't know, and
interesting.
it's mind blowing. It really like on a daily basis, it blows my mind when I think about it.
That's wild. Yeah, I've never had that experience yet, but I haven't talked to a lot of folks in that realm, I suppose.
Well, put it this way, I'm like you. I say this on my show all the time. I grew up in the '90s. The psychics, the mediums, were the people that you saw with the little storefront on Main Street or whatever. They
Mm-hmm.
usually was their house, and they had like the front porch as like a space to work their psychicness, their mediumness. And I was told by my parents, oh, they're all swindlers, avoid them. Same thing when you go to carnivals or circuses, like, oh, avoid the mediums and psychics because they're swindlers.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to find out when I started my podcast, that's not true at all. I literally had a guest on Corby Miltlead, like Mitlead, Corby Mitlead.
Mm-hmm.
She literally wrote a book called The Yellow Brick Road Guide to Psychics
Mm-hmm.
about how to tell a fake psychic from a real psychic.
That's
So,
interesting.
and I mean, if you ever can get her on, she's a fascinating guest. I freaking loved having her on. She's so witty and so smart mouth. That's freaking amazing to have her on. But I also have to get her back on because she was a pleasure to have on. But so I mean, psychics are real. I have no doubt in my mind. Yes, they may have been more fraudulent in the '90s and whatnot, early 2000s, because they weren't appreciated, so the real ones didn't come out to play at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, the spiritual awakening's been happening more and more over the last anywhere from 10 to 5 years. So more and more people are realizing they have abilities and they're using them.
That's interesting. What just kind of this whole topic that we're talking about is fraught with hoaxes and people making claims and so forth. It's if there was a way to kind of make that all go away, I think that this wouldn't be so fringe. You
I
know what I
mean,
mean? I think
you're never gonna make it go away. I mean, there's especially in this day and age, there's scammers and there's frauds out there for every category of business there is.
mhm.
So I mean, it's never gonna go away because there's Arabian princes around every corner waiting to fax you so you can send them your money to help them. So
Right.
I mean, it's the ridiculous frauds of the '90s have just gotten worse than ever. And I mean, you have to be careful who you talk to on Facebook nowadays or otherwise your Facebook will get hacked and taken over. So
Hmm.
it's
Yeah, it's just
ridiculous.
so much though. It just it I think that's what makes it hard for people to have conversations if they're um you know worried about the stigma of it or something that then they don't, oh yeah, well, I mean, there's so many documented things, and yet even with that, because of the hoaxes and so forth, people shy away from it because of the fact that all that is going on as well. And you're right, it happens in every corner of everything nowadays. But because of the nature of these things, I suppose that people get scared of it. They don't want
Well,
to engage in the conversation.
uh, I feel like people are becoming more open to it nowadays more than ever, though, because the world is a scarier place now than it's ever been. It's every year the world gets more and more scary than it compared to when I was a kid,
Mhm.
and even before that, the world was a way safer place in the '70s and '80s and all that good stuff. So, well, for the most part, I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say there weren't bad people out there then because there was, but
Oh yeah.
I mean, but
Well, it's the law of averages tells you that the more people, then there's going to be more bad things because it just keeps going up. It doesn't go down when there's more people. Everything
but
just gets more.
the way I'll put it is, if people want to believe in mediums, psychics, tarot card readers, all this great tools that are out there nowadays to find out more about yourself, find out more about your future by possibly because predicting the future is a touchy thing because I don't believe I mean, I believe in fate 100%. I believe there are certain things that are meant to happen to everybody at certain points in their life, so we can't control that. But there's a lot of future that's variable as well, based on your decisions. And if you truly want to find a medium or psychic that's tarot card reader that you can trust and that is real, well, one, go check out my past episodes of Paranormal the New Normal. You'll find a bunch of them because there's not one person that's been on my show that I don't believe is a real professional.
Hmm.
But two, these people all these people have Instagrams, Facebooks, Twitters nowadays. Watch them. Watch them when they go live. Watch them when they do readings for people. Watch when they do card readings for people. And you can pretty much, if it seems like they're just coming up with the common obvious answers that everybody's going to get regardless of whether they
Hmm.
have ability or not, then they're fakes. Yes, they're 100% fakes. If which they exist. I mean, I'm sad to say they do exist, but I don't think they should because I love the spiritual world and I don't think that fakes should be allowed to exist, but you can't control that.
Right.
If you watch them though and they're coming up with things for people that nobody could see coming or couldn't be googled, then those are the real ones. I mean, if anybody wants a real psychic or real medium or anybody in the paranormal spiritual world to talk to somebody of some profession in the paranormal spiritual world to talk to, I should say, then come talk. Then message me, PM me, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I'll gladly answer you and I'll gladly point you in the right direction because I know plenty of them.
Cool. So as we wrap up here, so what do you think? Not to leave out the maniacal music musings, but what do you think the direction of Paranormal the New Normal is going to take as you move forward here over this next year or so? Is there any area that you're more interested in than others now? As you've continued your journey.
Well, I mean, Paranormal New Normal is purely based on what the guests I can find are and what the guests do and what they are. And so the topics are going to go wherever the guests happen to be. If it's a Bigfoot researcher, then it's going to be a Bigfoot episode. If it's a psychic medium, I mean, yes, we have been touching on more scientific topics lately because I am always on Good Pods between number one, and number three top science podcast spot. So I'm gonna kind of lean into that a little bit here and there. And
Sure.
I've talked to people I've talked to people who can supposedly I've talked to actually to a lot lately of people who are into microdosing and who are into plant medicine. I've talked to people who are into these patches that can heal pretty much everything, including cancer, that activate stem cells, or there's another name for it, GNKCU, which is the name for in America because they can't say stem cells, but because fuck America. But I mean, I and we've been doing I mean, we do special brackets every month on Paranormal Normal. I took a break from them for a while, but every other month it's a horror movie bracket of some kind. I let my participants try to pick the next topic with through a wheel spin, but and the months we don't have horror movie brackets, we have some other topic in the paranormal world topics. I mean, for brackets, and it's fun. It's a nice little special for my audience, and I enjoy doing them. And I mean, all our previous brackets are available for 1-on-1 or 2-on-1, 3-on-1, whatever for other podcasters or just people who are interested. So we Paranormal the New Normal was bringing you entertainment for many years ago. My episodes were running out, so that's why I actually know when your episode's releasing because I just literally edited it the other night. I have 30, 40 episodes still to edit, and we're not going away anytime soon. We're not going away anytime soon. When I do recordings, I record for a week straight, multiple days a week, and I I bankroll those episodes so I have them in the future. And weeks like this, I guess that shows because promotion's a good thing. But
Yeah.
and I like talking to I like being on I like guesting because I like guesting on podcasts because it's not me running the show. It's just me having a good time talking.
Yeah. Well, speaking of good times, I didn't know if he would. So, I don't know if you know Jeremy. So, I have been doing a stream of conscious comedy. I'm going to bring him on here. He's got a stupid name on there. Miles, are you there?
Eat my shorts. I freaking love it.
This is Miles from the
I know he was going to be goofy. So, but I had told him to come on at 8:00, and obviously he's right on time. Miles title, folks. So we do a stream of consciousness thing every week, and then I started doing these conversations because I got into guesting as well, and that's how I met Jeremy here in Paranormal the New Normal. And we were just wrapping up, Miles, but I saw you popped up, and I thought I'd bring you on to see if you had any questions for Jeremy before we wrap things up. But he's been a great guest, and we talked about some great things, and I'm not going to go over them with you because you're so late, but I didn't know if you had a question for Jeremy that you wanted to raise here.
Yeah, where are you based out of?
You don't ask him where he lives. He's out east.
I'm out of Massachusetts. I'll gladly say that. I don't say the city, but I'll say Massachusetts.
I'm not going to come to his house. I'm just asking. I don't.
Oh,
I mean, you be welcome. We'd have a beer and all that, but
no, don't ever invite him over to your house. He'll never leave, Jeremy. I'm telling you that this is the way it is.
I got kids. I'm used to that.
He'd be another child in your life that you don't, but the one you don't want.
Like, I want to believe, but yet I'm skeptical too. So what would you say to a guy like me?
Easy. Listen to my show. There's 180, 190 episodes at this point. You'll be a believer by the end of all of them. Trust me.
Okay, I will.
The experiences I've heard about, as some of them may sound ridiculous, but like velociraptors fighting alongside both sides of World War II, velociraptor extraterrestrials, I should say, not just velociraptors, but velociraptor extraterrestrials fighting along both sides of World War II. And yes, I literally was half laughing, half stuttering as I was told that in a show for about 5 minutes. But and I left that the freak in there because it had to be left in there. But
so these aren't reptilians; these are a whole nother species that look like velociraptors, right?
Apparently, velociraptors are not just dinosaurs. Apparently, there were some that were just dinosaurs. And apparently, there were some that, like the Savage Land and X-Men, kind of evolved past that and became intelligent enough to figure out how to get off Earth. You have to listen to that episode. I can't even describe it in all its glory, but
sounds cool. I mean, yes, man.
Oh, it sounds freaking amazing. I was literally like mind blown moment, but it literally was one of the only moments of my podcast I ever was silenced because I was just like my mind was so blown. But I mean, if you listen to most episodes of my podcast, there's so many experiences with spirits, so many experiences with Bigfoot, dogmen, and everything else in the world. Dragons. Yes, dragons are real. There's so many experiences with everything else out there that you can't help but believe because these people have no reason to lie. Why would they lie? Like, these people are investigators. They spend their time doing this. Why would they lie about it? Like, that just doesn't make sense. I'm not paying them to be my show. Hell, half the time I get paid to have them on my show. So why would they lie to me?
I always wonder if they're selling a book or something. Then I go, okay, they're selling a book. That's
Well,
my
no.
thing. But if they're
The
not,
ones that-
then there you go.
I mean, yes, I'm not gonna lie, a lot of my guests have been authors. Because, I mean, in this day and age, all you need to do is write some kind of book and Amazon will publish it for you. So to be an author this day and age is not like you don't have to like write a best-selling novel to be an author this day and age.
Right. Yeah,
Anyway, to be an author,
the entry is very low. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of have an idea for a book based on I think I would just call it my worldview, and it literally would be my view of the world through everything I've been told by guests and by my own intelligence of what I think this world is with every paranormal topic. And I want to start writing it eventually. I haven't quite got to the starting point even yet, but it is my goal one day within the next 10 years to write this book. And I honestly think it would be a bestseller because I had this whole theory that's very detailed and very unique. But I mean, based on everything I heard, it seems pretty accurate. So I don't want. You can hear it on my show. I've got into this. It's called the Earth Prison Theory. I've gone into it many times on my show.
Oh, okay, I've heard of this.
I'm not gonna go into it now because we'll be here for another half hour. But it's. I want to write it down one day and make a book out of it. But that will come in the future at some point. I'm working on too many other podcast things right now to make that happen. But
yeah, we're like the Australia of the galaxy right here.
Basically, yeah. That's basically the bottom line of it, but it's very extraterrestrial based. So, I'll get into it eventually. I'll write it eventually, I'm sure. But
now, Miles, we were just talking before you popped in about psychics and so forth, and Jeremy has had some pretty good experiences that are very real, right? So there are things that were very hard for him. Did you have anything like that? I'm trying to remember if you had told me anything like that.
Have I met one?
Yeah, no, I thought you had talked to one at some point.
I did. And I don't know. I don't even want to say it. I don't know. I thought she was full of shit, but I don't know. I'm just gonna
see, that's my skepticism. I was skeptical as well, but he is telling me that he's had experiences that were mind-blowing.
I'm not saying they all are, but this lady was like, does anyone know an old person that used to drive a blue car?
Okay.
Your grandpa did? Oh, is he dead? Oh, he loves you. Yeah.
See, okay. That right there is the John Edwards type of biggest douche in the universe, according to South Park. John Edwards. That's his type of shit. Right. And no, that is not a real psychic or medium. That is, I forget the exact term for it, but it's basically similar to cold calling.
Right, yeah, he's just baiting you with vague things, and then if you say
exactly,
you perk up, then he's got you. So
yeah, it's what John Edwards would do on TV all the time. It's I see an older lady. Her name starts with a K L L M M, and then like. Somebody would jump up eventually and say something because they're stupid. But, I mean,
they want to be on TV or something.
They want to be on TV, or they want to get fame or something. Or they just want or even worse. The worst part of it is they want to be talked to by someone who passed and they loved. And this fucking horrible man, John Edwards, is taking advantage of them. And he's not the only one. There's tons of these out there. There's tons of them on cruise ships, on stages in Vegas, and everything else. But the real psychics... The real mediums, I've been told, like they don't even tell me the name of the person they're talking to, and a lot of them wait till after the show was over because they didn't want me to react in a bad way on the show, thinking I would like call them out or something and say they're fake. But they would tell me after the show and like the details they would describe. Like one of them literally described my ex-roommate who died we used to live in my dad's old trailer together for a year or two alone before I moved to Massachusetts, back when I lived in New York. And he died in a fire a couple years after I moved away. He was very sick, and police questioned whether the fire was started on purpose or not, but whatever. And he died in the fire. They found his charred body laying on the burnt couch in the trailer, and
Terrible.
it was very sad. And I mean, he wanted to die by that point though, so I wasn't really upset about it. But I had a psychic straight tell me like they wouldn't tell me his name. They said like they started giving me details about him that like nobody would know because he was not on social media at all. He hated being known by public, so he was not on social media at all. They started to give me details about him that nobody would have known, and as soon as I said his name, actually, they were just like, he says yes, and I was like, shit, like I never imagined he would come through to me because he was not a believer in God at all. He was not a believer in anything at all. He was a atheist to the bottom of his heart, and if he gets to, I mean, I don't know if he's stuck on Earth somewhere or he's just like hanging out with me still. If you are, what up, Brian? But I mean, I don't know where he is at this point because I don't go to psychics and memes looking for explanations of things. I don't because I feel like that's gonna find fake ones if I do that.
Yeah.
I just wait for them to come to me and say, "Oh, this." I mean, I've had both both my grandfathers present with me. I've had my one grandmother who passed present with me when I'm doing podcasts. It's and the things they tell me about all these people, all my relatives, all my friends that have passed. Nobody would know. These are all older people that my grandparents were all older. They had yes, my one grandfather had a no, actually none of them had Facebook accounts. None of them had Facebook accounts. None of them were on any other form of social media. You couldn't know they were related to me. I mean, yeah, you could find my first name in their obituary. You couldn't find my last name. So, I mean, yeah, I guess actually maybe you could through my mother or something, but still, nobody's gonna go through that much Googling just to try to prove something to me off air.
Wow.
If it was on air, I mean, if they're trying to prove it on air, that's a whole nother thing. Then maybe I still doubt it because I don't think these people spend the time. Because they're not making money off me. They're not making money off me. I'm making money off them usually. So why would they spend the time?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my logic is sound in that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, listen to Paranormal the New Normal. I've had so many great guests. One of my first guests saw/heard the devil 3 times. He literally was my 4th or 5th guest, and he still to this day is one of my favorite guests because his stories chilled me to the bone. And I don't even believe in the devil. I'm an agnostic. I don't subscribe to any religion or belief. I believe there's something out there, extraterrestrial or God big G, or God's little G, I don't freaking know. But there's something out there. I 100% believe that. I will not give a name to it. I will not belong to any religion because I think organized religions are fraud. But he swears he saw the devil or heard the devil 3 times. And Christopher Soucy, that's his name. He was one of my first guests. I have to get him back on the show still because he had more stories to tell me that he didn't get to. But to this day, almost 2 years later, that episode still shakes me to my core because it's just, I mean, Jesus. And I've talked to demonologists before too, and they didn't shake me up like he did. So that's a whole nother thing. And he's a goddamn actor. He's an actor/writer. I mean, he's not even coming on trying to convince me that God's real or anything. He was just telling me about experiences that happened to him when he was in the army and whatnot.
He met some producers, apparently. They're the devil. No.
I don't know. I mean, he's a good man. He's a good man, and I advertise him every time I talk to somebody about my show. I advertise him because his episode is one of my favorites, and he was literally my 4th or 5th episode. I was so lucky to get him on when I did.
Cool. Well, Miles, anything else from you before we bid farewell to Jeremy?
Can they? Do you know anyone that can may look at a picture of an object, like on the internet, for instance, and get a vibe off it? You think, or would they have to see it in person? Do you think?
Well, a vibe for what? To locate an object, are you saying, or to just
Like,
get a feeling for what
let's
it's about?
let's say I had an object that I'm trying to I think what is the word, Bob? Provenance. I'm trying to
You want to authenticate something. You want to
I want to
authenticate an
authenticate
object.
something, but I have to draw a straight line between the something and the person that formerly owned it. But if
I
I
mean,
but if I set a picture to like Joe Smith, he can do it. Are there people out there that can do that? Like look at it and like I pick up something, blah, 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 or,
I mean,
would that,
some psychics might be able to do that. I mean, that's kind of a broad thing to ask, but
yeah,
my suggestion would be astral projectionist.
okay.
People that can astral project themselves while sleeping. Because I've had Vincent Field. He wrote a book called Astral Projection and Lucid Dreaming. I had him on my show probably a year and a half ago at least, if not earlier than that.
Hmm.
And I mean, and my co-host Deborah has done on Global Strangers too. She took a class on during COVID, and I mean, there are police officers and detectives taking classes on astral projection too as well. I've talked to
Mhm.
them as well, and astral projection basically is if you ask an astral projectionist to find something while they're projecting, they usually can if they have a general idea of where the person is that has it or where the item is. They usually can project themselves, and it may take a couple times, but they will find where the item is.
Hmm. Okay.
I mean, it's basically a way to break and enter without actually breaking and entering.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was what was the CIA and so forth used
Oh,
that.
The Montauk Project, and
Yeah.
the other one I can't think of at the moment. That's just like the Montauk Project. God damn it.
I know what you're talking about, but yeah, they use that remote viewing and things like that to get to find out information, get secrets, and they were using it. Oddly enough, that loops back to our nuclear conversation because they were using it to find
Oh, MK
people.
Ultra.
People,
MK
yeah.
Ultra. That's the other thing.
Oh, use it to find people who are refining uranium at one point.
Oh, I
So.
mean, my co-host Deborah on Global Strangers took a class in astral projection when she was during COVID because what else was there to do? And there's literally a police detective from Brooklyn, New York, in her class,
Mhm.
and he straight up said the cops are using this more and more as a way to find out things without having to get warrants.
Yeah.
So,
Interesting. That's wild.
which I mean, that right there like made me perk up right away. Like, really, if police are using something, then you know one, the FBI, CIA, IRS, government's using that thing because police don't use something unless it's approved by the government. And two, that's almost creepy that police are using that. That's almost creepy to a degree.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, some of the creepiest people I know are policemen, so it stands to
Oh,
reason.
my dad's best friends were cops, so yeah, there's some creepy cops out there, but 100%, 100%.
Yeah. Well,
Well, Jeremy, I want to thank you very much for your time, for talking to me tonight, and Miles for just a few minutes because he's apparently brought a broken watch. And everybody, well, Jeremy, tell people where they can find you. I guess we'll do it that way.
All right, well this might be a minute, folks, but you can find me on Paranormal the New Normal, Maniacal Music Musings, or Bracket Bastards, wherever, or on the Asylum with Harley on the Mod Squad network, wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find me on Facebook as Uncensored, Untamed, and Unapologetic, U Cubed Podcast Collective Facebook group. You can find me on XX Baby, and the gram is at Juggalo Bastard. You can find me on TikTok as at Juggalo Bastard Podcast to see funny clips from all my shows. And you can find me on YouTube as Monaco Music Musings, Paranormal the New Normal, or Bracket Bastards. That's what Bracket Bastards streams every Sunday at 3 East, 2 Central on YouTube. And my shows are streaming live always on Facebook, Twitter, and sometimes YouTube. So, I mean, you can find my shows streaming live in a lot of places. Just follow and you'll see it eventually.
All right. Well, thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you.
And we'll catch you.
And be sure to check out Bob's episode next week, a week from Saturday. Bob's episode of Paranormal the Normal drops. So,
and we talk about all kinds of kooky stuff. It's a fun.
We had a fun conversation. I don't remember half of it. That's why I know it's a fun conversation. But I know I wrote the title down while we were doing the show, and the title of the show literally is "Do Ghosts Burp and Fart?" Also, I didn't see any shadow boobs. Asking the important questions.
There you go. No shadow boobs. Till next time, folks.